Thank you for being here. We are ready to go. We are planning a session on the innovation of bottom line of this, the real use of Metaverse in business situations which have value, which have an outcome which is measured, which is valued by business. So that's going to be the talk for today. We have a very good collection of people who have done this, really felt this need and then have acted most of the time ahead of the rest of the industry. Let me first welcome, I am Niranjan Ramsundar. I am from UST. The next person on stage is going to be Matt Panwell, who is the VP for Digital Platforms and Experience at Elevance Health. Thanks, Matt. The next is Jim Stathopoulos. Jim is the MD for Digital Technologies, but his focus is customer experience in the airport, employee experience on the plane, anything to do with improving their life, making them better, making them more productive. That's what Jim focuses on. And then we have Bernie, who brings in, Bernie, welcome. Bernie brings in the rich experience of watching various companies doing this, looking at trends, looking at patterns, and he has seen it before many times. There is a hype cycle, there are things which happen, but what Bernie strongly believes that this is going to change the way we operate in the next 5 years. So we have this cast, we believe it's going to be of real value, and we will go straight into my presentation. So the focus, as I said earlier, was innovation at that edge between the real and virtual world. And UST itself, just to give you a brief overview, we are around 20 years, 99 we started, 22 years now. We are around 30,000 employees, around 30 countries. Our focus has changed over the years as we've operated with our clients. Many of our clients, like Elevance Health, has been a client for the last 20 years in different names, but Anthem, WellPoint, and so on. And we have always had this focus on what is of value to the customer rather than what is value to us, because we know we will get there. And that is where we focus on. And part of the change over the last years has been a move to more platforms, because we believe that can accelerate value to our customers. So we'll talk briefly about that. Of course, the countries we operate in, I said 30, these are the countries we operate in. 50% of our business comes from the US, another 25% from Europe, 25% from Asia Pacific. So we identified some platforms which have a unique value. They're neither too hot, not too cold, not too big, not too small. So that's a Goldilocks zone that we call, and we'll go through these in detail, a little bit more detail. The first one is what we call as an accelerator for cloud engineering called PACE. It's a DevOps platform with SRE as the focus, starting from helping developers get productive from day one or day two, and helping them through the process of getting code into production, monitoring it, and improving it. So that's PACE. The second one is our UST IQ. It's a big data platform focused on getting insights from data which can be acted upon. Every element of that, from ingestion to handling it in a layer where it's not too expensive as big data grows up in the cloud. How do you manage that cost? Allow sub-second querying against that data. That's what UST IQ does. And then this is the core of what we do today, all the things that you're going to hear about from our customers. This is the Immersive X platform, which helps us really accelerate the time to market. So if you look at the bottom, things like recipes and composites are industries verticalized solutions which can be brought together quickly to give something that you can use for a particular use case. So that is really the unique part of what we do. Anybody can build a metaverse today. People are building it. You have Decentraland on one side. You have Facebook and Meta doing something. But really what we believe is the use cases which have business value need to be done fast, and they need to be done cost effectively. So this is what every element in this that you see, from reference implementations, from immersive experience labs, from the ability to handle devices which are changing every day, literally every day, the development rigs, that is what Immersive X offers. And when you look at all of this together, what it does is accelerate time to market at cost which are meaningful for your business case. So with that, I will have two clients talking about our experience with us. One of them, as I introduced, is Matt Panwell. The other angle of Elevance is that they have been a 20-year customer. And they have seen us through our journey. They have seen us just doing technology projects to doing something which is really innovative. And we'll really thank you for the opportunity to do that with you, because that's very important, that we get an opportunity to do this for you, which creates value. The second customer is United. United is a customer we literally met in the last AWS reInvent event 1 year back. So they have been less than a year's customer, and you can see the range of kind of client experience that we create, that they believe it's valuable for them and that it creates for them a business differentiation and competitive advantage. So that's why we have them on the stage. Bernie, of course, provides a worldview of all of this together. So we look forward to the session. I'd hand it over now to Matt to talk about his experience with doing this for Anthem and Elevance Health. Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So real briefly about my role. My role is I lead the digital product and experience group for Elevance Health. And so really what my job and my team's role is to really curate great experiences for our customers as they're engaging in their health. Most people here probably don't think of health insurance and great experiences. Those two don't usually go very well together. And that's part of the challenge and the opportunity that we have, quite honestly, in front of us. And so if you're looking at ways, for us as we're figuring out how we can do a better job, one thing that we always know is true is healthcare is super personal, right? It's probably one of the most personal things that you can engage with is your health or the health of a loved one. The other thing is usually emotions are high, right? When you're dealing with a significant health situation for you, you don't usually have a lot of time to think about it. I can promise you, I've got 2 boys growing up, they're older now. I never once went to one of their events and said, this is the day that my son Christopher is gonna fall down and break his arm and I'm gonna have to make a smart decision that's informed by data of where I need to take him so that he can get the best care and at the best cost. And these are the situations that we have to deal with every single day. And it's really our job. Like if you look at the evolution here, it's been tremendous, right? The exponential technology, we're gonna hear a little bit about that, the growth of AI and the way that we can help personalize things is tremendous in the 25 years that I've been in the payer space. It blows my mind. But there are certain things that still hold true. It's still complicated, and we've got to figure out a way to do it better. And so Elevance Health was Anthem before. We've taken that very personal. We rebranded our name this year. And so it is about elevating and advancing the way that we're engaging with our customers. And what does that mean? It means meeting people where they are. My health journey is going to be very different and unique to yours, from yours. And so it's important that we understand some of those differences and we understand how we can address the very specific needs of our individual customers. So how do we do that? The first thing that we do is we become customer obsessed. We're a digital first company at Elevance Health. Our CEO, Gail Boudreau, has made that very, very clear. So we are leveraging the technology so that we can provide the right capabilities, the right services at the right time for our customers. And so in order for us to do that, we have to put them at the forefront of all of the decisions that we're making, all of the investments that we're making. You'll see a lot of these capabilities here, digital health platforms. Part of that is expanding our reach. How do we do things? How can we create frictionless experiences? All of us today are still dealing with healthcare, and it's a pain in the butt. You're not really sure. It's probably one of the few industries that you're making one of the most emotional types of decisions you can possibly make, and you don't even know what it's going to cost you. In many cases, you may not even know the person that's going to perform a surgery or a specific thing on you. And so our job is to try to improve that. Like, how can we remove some of that abrasion, some of those friction points? How can we expand the reach through things like virtual care? Like, one of the positive things, at least from a health perspective out of COVID that came out of this for folks like myself, is the growth in things like virtual care. It enables us to reach people that were not reachable before. Not everybody lives with the same proximity to quality health. So virtual care allowed us to do several things. One, it allowed us to provide a convenience, right? There's a lot of times where you can actually get great information, either text or chat or have a video visit with a doctor online, and all of your needs can be met without ever leaving your couch. It also allows us to go places that we weren't able to go before. So folks that had a hard time making it in or seeing certain types of specialists, it allowed us to really be able to serve a large series of population groups that were underserved before, and it made it very hard for them. Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is great, right? It's one of those things, and we're continuing to mature on that. We've been in this space for some time. How can we leverage things with AI-based solutions, and how can we use data science and predictive models to really help educate people so that they can almost have a conversation with a chatbot, if you will, and really better understand a specific condition or understand what the severity of their situation may or may not be. So this has been a real game changer for us to be able to figure out how can we bring information. We're not diagnosing something, we're trying to bring information to customers that is supported by data so that they can make better decisions about something that's probably the most important thing to them in the world, which is their health. Prior to some of this, there were some stats that said people spent 10 times more time researching what television they're going to buy than they did how to actually treat a health condition, because they didn't know how to do it. And so what do we typically do when we don't know how to do? Hey, my knee hurts. Hey, John, who did you go see? Do you know any good doctors around there? Sure, great, and away we go. That's the game changer for us. How are we able to do that? And how do we bring it all together? Wearable devices now, the health monitoring tools. I mean, it goes way beyond the watches that we wear that collects pretty much everything under the sun. It provides us the ability, though, to wear, whether you're wearing a glucose cuff or you're wearing anything else that's helping you measure your sleep or something else, it starts to bring a holistic picture for our consumers together. So historically, it was you'd have one conversation with one doctor at any given time, and you sure as heck hoped you remembered most of the information when you're nervous sitting in his office or her office and they ask you a question. The ability to aggregate all of this data that's being just by something that's worn on your wrist or carried in a pocket or something along this line is also a real big game changer for us. And so we're really excited about where that's going to take us. At Elevance Health, our gateway to care is our Sydney Health app. So what we've done with that, it is our member-facing app that we've rolled out. We have over 15 million members that are registered in the solution today. It is our one-stop shop that we said we've got probably 120 different curated solutions that are in there. So at Elevance Health, we don't think, we're not the best builders of all of the diabetes programs in the world, but this is where we can bring the best and the brightest solutions that are being developed across the world and bring those and serve those up to our customers. And so we're using information that we have, that we know, your claims, your information, your goals, your interests, and data that we have about you to really curate a hyper-personalized experience. And so we can understand what may be important based on what we know about you and direct you and give you that gentle nudge so that you can take that next step in your very important health journey. So this is what we're doing here. And it is our goal in using this to truly be that lifetime trusted health partner, so that when you're going into a doctor's office now and you're having a conversation with him or her, you're now able to pull up all kinds of information. We have family health records so that you can sit down and say, here's all of my results. Here's all of the data from the information that I'm wearing on my wrist. Here's all of my latest medicines and that are there. I don't know if many of you know, a lot of that information today isn't easily shared across physicians. And so it really empowers you as a member to really engage in something that should be one of the most important things that you should be talking about. And it also gives you data at your fingertips anytime you need it. So if Christopher does go down playing soccer and that wrist looks like it's broken, I could either say, hey, this is a very emotional thing, seeing my son crying on the ground. Maybe that sounds like it's an emergency to me. And I can go spend $1,500 and sit in probably an ER room for about 5 hours to ultimately get the same type of cast that I could spending $80 going to an urgent care center right down the street and get it wrapped in probably about an hour. And these are the types of things that we take for granted. People don't know that. They don't understand the facility that you're getting a service done in has a massive impact to cost. So this is our responsibility at Elevance Health to make sure that we're educating and we're providing that type of information to them. One of my colleagues spoke yesterday, a colleague and friend, Gita Wilson, around the importance of things like empathy. And so one of the other things that we know very clearly is no two people are alike. They are not alike. And one of the things that we need to do, especially from the health insurance side of the house, is build trust. So if folks think that we're collecting and using information so that we can raise their premiums, we're already starting off behind the 8 ball. So it is our, not only job, it is our responsibility to build that trust and really show how we're using this information and curating it in a way that will allow them to be educated and informed consumers. How can it be real time? How can it be interoperable? How can we make sure that that data and information is yours and yours to be used when you need to use it? Social is another very big tool. It's a very impactful, other than actually incentivizing and rewarding somebody to actually perform an activity, social has become one of the more influencing things in health to drive behavior change. So the opportunities for us to really understand our customers in this new space are endless. But we're taking all of these things that you're seeing on this slide into account as we make those types of decisions. We also know that we can't stand still, right? And some of the great partnership that we have with UST is really pushing us right now, so that we know that right now the foundation isn't as strong as it needs to be. But we also know that the world's not standing still. So we're trying to figure out how can we go beyond, the app, the phone-based experience. How can we leverage something like a mirror that you can actually have almost like a speech-based conversation with, and be able to have it consume data and information, whether it's on a mirror or on a television set that you have, and start to use new technology, or in technologies in many cases that have actually been out there for some time in other industries, to have a discussion. And so half the challenge is trying to find the right programs and services and use the tools that we already have available today. So that could be a game changer for us, to where you can go have a conversation with your mirror, and they can say, hey, I can understand you haven't taken your medicine today. Or, hey, great, I'm reading this, you didn't sleep very much today, is there something that we can do? So you can start to change the way that folks are starting to engage with their health and providing that level of convenience that truthfully isn't there today, but it can be. We're also looking at things like the symptom checking and tracking. I touched on that a little bit earlier. It's a way for you as a consumer to very quickly become educated. It allows us to leverage data science models from just tens and tens of millions of records that can help us do essentially what lots of doctors do today when they're treating you in their office. This is 98% of the folks that have conditions that look like that. This is typically the solution that you're going to do. And so these are the types of things that we're bringing to life today and maturing, and 3D modeling. I mean, like when you're in there, I'll use an example. My mother-in-law just got released from the hospital this morning, actually. And she's in there, she had her kidney removed, it was cancerous, she's doing okay. But she's in there having these conversations with doctors, and not only can she not really understand what's going on, why can't we bring things like models, where as you're engaging in dialogue with your providers are out there, they can help you see, and you can talk to them about the various types of procedures through something like 3D modeling that's available out there, or help you do the types of research going into it so that you know the right types of questions to ask. So we are super excited about all of these opportunities and many more. If you haven't been to the hub over in the Venetian, please stop by. There's some really great work that we have done with UST, and I strongly encourage you to look at that. But we know that we're still only at the tip of the iceberg. But with the commitment and focus that we have, we also know that we can't continue to sit still, because we know that we can't, 20 years from now, we can't come back and say, hey, healthcare's still confusing. We got to get there and fix it, and through some of these partnerships, I think we're on the right track.
Yes. You can just talk.
Hello, everyone. So Jim Stathopoulos, work for United Airlines. My crew or my team, we're kind of, what we do real quick is we're broken up into 2 divisions. We support our frontline. The frontline teams that we support are anything in the airports and anything in the contact centers for the technology stacks. When they're bored, the other half of the team, what they work on is our employee UX team. We have an enterprise architecture team, and Airshop, which is our innovation hub, which is going to be one of the primary things I'm going to be talking about today. 2 things to maybe start. Some of the themes we've been looking at are, and my kids think I just create words. I got little kids, and when we're studying with school, because my conference calls are Fidge Digital, and half the time I don't pronounce it right, Bleisure, are two of the big topics, and then the metaverse is kind of the third one that our team is really trying to strategize and figure out. The bleisure is pretty specific to our industry and hoteling. The COVID has kind of transformed. You used to go on a business trip, and then you used to go on a leisure trip. And in today's travel environment, those are being combined, and it's really changed how the journey is in day of travel in the airports or your booking styles and things like that. So we're trying to figure out new ways to accomplish that. And then similar conversation in the airports. We have a lot of physical infrastructure that we're changing and digital, and how does that play together, and how do you test things quicker in this ultimately always evolving world, which is where the metaverse comes in. For one of our first clients, I thought my team was in a boondoggle last year when they were here, but Daryl, who's out here, actually was going to the expo. They met UST. Matt specifically, who's been here, has been a great partner with his team, and they kind of opened our eyes with some of the stuff with the metaverse. And Daryl came home, drove me crazy for probably 3 months to try to get on my calendar and push kind of in short the story that we're going to end up talking about. But it's been nice to see when you go to one of these conferences, have the team come back, give you a readout, show value, and then actually influence the business. For the travel industry, we're growing. Everyone's traveling a lot more. Specifically, our airline is picked up about 500 planes, so we're trying to push the envelope and grow. And what that means is our employees, we're going to have around 30% new employees. So training is something that we need to really go after. Our airports are physical structures. The reality at O'Hare, it's not like you're going to go pick up 20 acres and it's going to expand. You're kind of stuck with it's landlocked, so you're really stuck at what you're working at. So if you're growing the airline, the digital technology really needs to help us be able to grow and either ingest the planes quicker or scale up. So those are some of the problem statements that our business has been facing, and our innovation lab has been kind of asked to help out with. To evolve the problem statement that the metaverse has been helping us with, during COVID in our airports, we tested out some interesting things with the goal of trying to help out the customer experience. One of the first ones are digital signage. They used to be pretty stale. It was all hard-coded. We use a content management system now to dynamically change them, which is we can personalize now to a gate. We can personalize to a hub. So if the Bears are playing and you want to say "Go Bears," you can do that quickly. That's some of the new stuff that we're going to be launching over the next couple of weeks and months. The next one was boarding messaging, and it's really evolved now. Our CEO wants us to be extremely transparent. So if you ever notice, if you're flying United Airlines and the scan at the gate reader, you get a message. That changes the behavior of customers flying us. And that messaging, to be able to do some of those tests were during COVID were much easier. Even the boarding process, we changed how we enter the boarding process to optimize the footprint in the gate area. And our last one was actually a combination of restaurant QR code and telemedicine. We created something called Agent on Demand, where you can walk up and speak to an agent by scanning a QR code and then in essence just videoing with them. It's an actual airport agent, and it's meant for day of travel. To do all these things, everyone was like, wow, you guys were so fast during COVID. Well, the reason was when you launch something in an airport, when no one's traveling, that playground is very easy to test, learn, and get out very quickly, kind of doing your A/B testing in your physical. In today's world, when we're back to flying 400,000 or 500,000 people a day, it is very difficult to be able to do something. I can't pull off 3 gates to go test something. We can't shut down half of O'Hare to launch a new product. So that testing, what happened was our UX team, for example, would prototype something, either in Envision or whatever their tooling that they're using, or we would do something in styrofoam in the lab, or do something with cardboard, and then it would go right to the airport. What we're trying to get to now is use, in essence, the metaverse to be able to test some of those things out. What we do, and to get into the three use cases that we've come up with UST, one of them was training, which is the first problem that we were talking about. Today, a lot of people use training, virtual reality for training, and I think the conversations that we had with Matt, and it was interesting, when we met Matt, he was talking about Anthem, but I didn't know he was talking about Anthem, so it's cool now that we're actually up here presenting together. But it was, to just do vanilla testing is lot of companies are doing that. And what we've tried doing is there's 3 personas. We took the example of an unaccompanied minor, something simple. Matt's team did their experience designing, kind of the design thinking session with our airport team out in LA. When we went out there, the training that we've set up has 3 personas. It has the customer persona, it has the supervisor persona, and it has an agent. And you can sit there and interact different scenarios, basically in real time in this metaverse. The other part that we actually have the app. We have an app that has the chain of custody of an unaccompanied minor. That app is embedded in the metaverse. So they're literally using the app in their training, which is again we think is a little bit more of an evolution than just running the simulations. And then the last thing, as you're going in there, you're doing tests, and depending on how the tests work out, the simulation changes, which we feel has just been a little bit more of a more robust training environment. But that's the vanilla one. That was the pretty easy one to go after. The next 2 that we're actually close to signing, we're going to be starting work in Q1 with them, is today we're trying to figure out our new signage. And there's the digital signage, which we've already started launching, and we're looking now at our airports and our physical signage. And to do something like that, you got to go build something. They're actually surprisingly expensive. Like even when you're walking in conferences, if you see those, they're like 10, 12 feet. There's like 4 boxes together, and they point in the direction for you to go. Those are not cheap. I always thought they were like a couple $100. They're actually in the tens of thousands of dollars to build those. And actually to put them out in an airport, you might block signage. You need to move it. So to do that, we went in San Francisco, launched it, and that was, I think, probably 6 months ago. And we've been iterating in airports in a very physical manner, expensive manner. To get feedback from our executives is difficult because they got to actually go into that airport. So the idea that we're partnering with UST on is to bring basically a product, and I forget what we're actually calling it, free roam the airport. But you basically will be able to go in there, and our product launches will go first into the metaverse. So whatever the new signage in a digital world or in a physical world will look like at O'Hare's lobby, for example, you'll be able to go there, either go to our immersion room in the lab, or you'll be able to put your headset on, and you can see the height, you can move it around, you can basically do A/B testing in a way more cost-effective manner, and it allows us to move a lot faster versus this styrofoam to physical in an airport. The other one then that we're going to be working on in the metaverse is to start running simulations. We do simulations today. That's how we plan the size of it. That's how we get funding for a lot of things. But the reality of the simulations they're like souped up spreadsheets. And what we want to do is kind of basically have a video game of a lobby, and you can, so each airport has its own personality basically, and they have their own demographics. And it goes by airport, it goes either by lobby, by gate, or even by a bank. In a bank, we have like a 6 a.m. bank, we have like a 9 o'clock bank, 11 o'clock bank. Each one of those could be international based, they could be going heavy to the West Coast. Whatever that demographic is, there's a different style of interacting with our kiosks, because they might be heavy business travelers, or it might be leisure travelers. Whatever that scenario is, to actually test that out and see the flows in an airport is very difficult. So the idea that we've been working on is basically a video game. I was a big James Bond fan. I wish this technology was around 20 years ago to be able to play it. But it's to kind of immerse yourself in that airport with our kiosk and then trigger different simulations. Heavy flying to Greece, where you're going to have security checkpoints. This airport is going to start running biometrics because that's what TSA is going to end up doing. That will change the flow of the logistics of the airport, or how we want to set up the kiosks. Today, when we look at the kiosk modeling, it's literally just a PDF and some fun images, where in this world you can actually go in there and you can interact with them. You can do a half circle. If something breaks, we can play around with how that looks. We can determine if Thursday for Thanksgiving is a different flow than versus some random Tuesday in February. So those are the business cases that we've been trying to work with, with our internal teams and with our partners to be able to do this in our lab. The fun thing with this with UST, and there's a lot of questions I was asking Matt, because it's been a learning experience for me with the Metaverse, was, my boss was like, let's just go grab a Scrum team and go. Well, like there's painters and texture people. Like, it's not like you go grab a Python developer, a traditional UXer, and an Angular developer to go do something like that. So Matt's team and UST have really allowed us to basically springboard and go after this. It was a lot of the meetings were doing design thinking. We get the idea, and then Matt's taking the burden of hiring and dealing with these resources for us. The other part that we had some fun conversations has been around, like today you build a responsive web app. Well, can you apply the same thing? An app needs to work on an Android device, it needs to work on your desktop. Do you do the same thing with all the headsets? And that's been something that we've been trying to do, because my airport group might pick up a different headset than the contact centers group. And we need to be able to have it, device agnostic. So some of those learnings in this emerging kind of Web 3.0 technology, we've been using our innovation hub with a partner like UST, who's been bringing a lot of this thought leadership with us to answer a lot of these questions. And then obviously the other part is their platform is built on AWS. So I think we ended up going, probably it was about 6 weeks from when we went to an airport and actually got something built, and that's why they manipulated me to be up here on stage for the presentation on this. And I'm kidding, it's been actually a phenomenal experience working with this. And I'm a little older, kind of on the fence with some of this metaverse stuff. It's been great sitting with our airport teams and watching them interact with some of these tools and some of these ideas, and having our executives starting to wrap their heads around that. That's how their approval process moving forward for sending something to an airport is probably going to be with a headset working in the United Metaverse. So just thank you guys. Thank Daryl for coming out here and doing this. Thanks, Matt, and your team, and obviously AWS for giving us the platform to be able to do something like that.
Buddy?
Thanks. Well, good afternoon. Let me first of all thank all of you for being here. I know it's been a long week, busy week, probably didn't get much sleep, but we really appreciate you being in this session. Let me also thank UST for the partnership with ISG. I'll tell you in a moment about ISG. And let me also thank my panelists. Great stories, Elevance, and I'm a Sydney customer. Our family's a Sydney customer, so thank you for that. And I'm working my way to 1K on United, so
Thank you for your business.
just trying to get there, And you are making travel a lot easier for a lot of us, so thank you very much for that. So again, I'm Bernie Hecker. I'm with ISG. ISG is a public firm, and it's Information Services Group. We have about 800 clients. The last couple of years, we've done about 1,000 cloud engagements. We do both research, consulting, and advisory. What that means is one of our core businesses is really understanding and helping our clients choose vendors, companies, whether it's a hyperscaler, a company like UST, which firms should they select to go and deploy and do digital transformations and cloud implementations and those types of things. So this year we'll do about $16 billion of total contract value, where clients will hire us and say, I want to do this, I want to take these applications, take them to the cloud, outsource my infrastructure, whatever it may be, and we run that process for them. So that's a part of what we do. And what I wanted to do in this discussion with all of you is kind of step back and just talk a little bit about the physical versus the virtual, and just give you a perspective on that. I'm going to do that for a short time, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have a little panel, a little bit of an exchange about that. So let me just get into it here. So first of all, the metaverse. A lot of folks say, what is the metaverse? And to me, I'm going to give you a perspective and a little bit about personal experience. So if you think about web and the internet in kind of three phases, the first, sometimes you hear about Web 1.0. What was that? And I'm old enough to know when there was no email. Okay, it was all snail mail. Okay, then there was this thing called the internet, came in and used in a commercial way. And I could remember some of the first things that I did with the internet, and you got to learn these URLs, www, whatever. Just getting a weather report. Or finding out, what's going on in the world. It was kind of fascinating at the time, but you think about that, 20 plus years ago. That's Web 1, and one of the things about Metaverse and where we're going with Web 1, 2, and 3, it's not necessarily about the technology. It's about what the technology does to disrupt a business model, to disrupt what's going on. And there's a lot of social aspects to this too. I'm going to talk about decentralization and democratizing business processes and those types of things. But it's really going to change where we're going, that physical versus virtual. Think about Web 2.0. Okay, just think about that first time that you sent those emails or you went into your first couple internet sites. Now you're taking that and you're decentralizing it. At one time when you wanted to know the news, you had to go get a newspaper. Imagine that, going getting a newspaper or listening to a radio or listening to TV to actually get information, get data. Now that's put into a platform and you can do it anywhere. And Metaverse, that I'll talk about, is really going to take that to a whole new level. And again, it's not necessarily about the technology. When my colleagues up here talked about their business models, talked about business outcomes, they really didn't talk about technology per se. They talked about the experience. And that's where we're going with Web 3.0, but you should not get enamored with the technology because it's going to continue to accelerate at a rapid pace. Always think about business outcomes and business models. So, what does that mean? I have this chart here, the creator economy, which I'll give you a definition of that in a moment. And then, I'll just call it the multiverse, but the magic is really in the middle. What's happening? If you think about history a little bit, and those of you who are from the United States and studied things like the gold rush in the 1850s, people, rushing out to try to get gold. It was not necessarily about the gold rush in hindsight. Think about the markets that it created, the cities that it created. Some simple examples of the markets that it created, just selling simple things like picks and shovels and those types of things. That's where people made money. That's really what happens. And now what you have is, what is that middle? How are you going to make money on this thing called the multiverse? So there's things like NFTs, DAOs. What the heck is a DAO? That's a decentralized autonomous organization, and I'll give you an example of what that is. But what this is going to do, it's not about the technology per se. It's not about an Oculus. It's not about playing games. All those things are cool, but this is going to really revolutionize the way business is being done. Again, just think how crazy it was years ago if you didn't have your phone, and what you can do with your phone today, what you can do with your watch. The other thing is, it's going to be a slow burn. Think about it. I remember when I went on my first business sales, it was during the dot-com bust, or right before the dot-com bust. And I worked at IBM at the time. And that's when all the startups were out there. And these guys couldn't buy enough hardware and software. It was all about getting their next round of funding. And then everything all exploded. Now, that was a precursor to everything that's happened up to this point. So the fact of the matter is, it'll be a slow burn that's already started from early adopters like Elevance and United that are using technologies, multiverse type of technologies, and you don't even realize it's happening. It's not really a mystery. It's happening all around us that people are starting to use the virtual to substitute the physical. But the magic is in the middle. So let me give you some examples here. There's a bunch of logos on here. And again, when I talked about the social aspects of where the metaverse is going, if you look at music as an example, if you're a musician and you want your music to be known, in the old, quote, old days, you'd want to get a record label. You'd have to have an agent, all those things. You could go into any of those logos there, and basically you can join an organization and try to sell your own music on there. And it's interesting because most of the URLs that are in these, they use the .io instead of .com. So you have a whole economy and a whole set of companies that are being created. This is a whole new economy that's coming into being. And it's all decentralized and democratized. What does that mean? It's not hierarchical. It's not an enterprise. You don't have a CEO. A lot of the rules are created by these organizations. And they're all governed by blockchain. So you set the rules on NFTs, Bitcoin. These things just created themselves. They set the rules, and then they let the markets just go. That's what's happening. But these was where you make your money. And it's democratized because any individual, any place in the world with access to the cloud and access to the internet can go right in here. So it is really democratized out there. It's a new economy that's coming, and it's going to happen even before you know it. So what does this mean for all of us in a business sense? Now, I call this a substrate for the metaverse. Now, what's a substrate? Because you might not use that term in everyday language. That's basically the surface on something that grows. So if you have a rotten apple and you get mold on it, the surface allows mold to actually grow. So if you have an economy like this in the metaverse, you're going to need a substrate that can really let these things come to life. We call this SICE. That's an acronym that we've been using, but it stands for Secure, Intelligent, Connected Economies, when all these things come together. So what does that mean? It's not going to just create itself. You're going to need a lot of these things that are going to happen, but they're going to happen over time. Some can take years. Some can take a decade. But you're going to need things that you've always used over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Of course, there'll be hybrid cloud platforms. There'll be networks, whether it's 5G or 6G. You're going to need distributed infrastructures. You're going to need security. You're going to need all the things that you see on here, as well as making sure that you have the business-oriented processes underneath, whether it's governance, flexibility, risk, compliance, all those things. But it's an economy that's going to evolve automatically, but you can't lose sight. So I know when Elevance and United started to use some of these, they didn't throw these things out. These are all enablers. They're puzzle pieces to bring technology to the gate in an airport. These guys just didn't create charts. There's a lot of hard work that went into this, and they're going to continue to go and innovate to that next level. So I'll end here with a saying from Jeff Bezos. We've had 3 big ideas at Amazon that we've stuck with for 18 years. Put the customer first, invent, and be patient. And that's what's going to happen here with the metaverse. And again, it's not about the metaverse. It's not necessarily about the technology, but it's what the technology can do to disrupt a market. Whether it's Uber and what they did to taxis, whether it's, if you're old enough to remember, when you used to go get a video at Blockbuster Video, you'd go and you'd actually pick up a tape, and then streaming came out, and look what happened. So it's happening every single day, all around us. So not only be patient, but be ready. And I think it's going to be an exciting ride for all of us. So thank you. Whoa, that could have been dangerous.
Yeah, I could have been sprawling on the floor. So thank you very much. I think all the panelists, Matt, Bernie, Jim, they opened my eyes. So a lot of appreciation for them. Great work. Thank you. So what was really interesting was the fact that technology kind of, as size, as Bernie said, it kind of grows off the substrate without your knowing. It's suddenly there. And then it becomes part of your life, and then you expect it everywhere. You don't want to go to another airline and say, where is my check-in without virtual view of where I'm going to go. Even here, MGM Grand, you walked in. I'm sure you spent 20 minutes trying to find the place. I did. Uber, I don't know where it is. But imagine a virtual world where you can see where it is, where you are, and augmented reality tells you where to go. That's going to happen. If they don't do it, somebody else will, and people will go there. So that's where it is going, and we are very thankful to have partners, clients, who are looking at the future and working with us to imagine and create that future. So that's absolutely brilliant. And I'm not saying this because I'm on the stage. It is because we truly believe that they make us successful, and we hopefully make them successful. So next we thought we'll have a couple of questions that could generate thought and some discussions. The first one was, to Jim and then Matt, in whichever order. What do you see as the most disruptive digital technology? I mean, since you're already working on some of the cutting edge work, what do you see as the next disruption? Or even here, what do you see as really where things change for the world around you?
My first comment on the wayfinding with MGM, I think it's a different business model. I don't think they want us out of the casino, where at least at an airport, we do need to get you on your way. So I would say that might be on purpose. For us, and I don't know if this is, I wouldn't say this is new, but in our space, biometrics is going to be the most disruptive that's coming. And there's, I mean, the technology's there, it's being tested, you already use it on your phone. We actually met with Amazon yesterday, or AWS, and had a great meeting with their Palm team that uses biometrics for their Amazon Go stores and things like that. So that space is ever evolving right now. The government is working out their things, and for the airports and for the airlines, we need it to process faster through the airport. So if you can imagine a journey, you're waking up at home the day before you're traveling, you register yourself on the United app with your face, basically enroll in our biometric solution. You then approve day of travel that you're releasing your biometrics. So you know that you kind of control your identity at that point, but you release it to the airport in essence, and you smile, you walk up there, you smile, you drop your bag. You walk to the security checkpoint with TSA, you smile and walk through. You go to the club, smile, get in. I'm assuming you're smiling. Sometimes I'm on the glass half empty. And then when you go to the gate, you start to see, you probably see it now if you're flying international. Some of the airports have the international exits that's face biometrics. But that kind of seamless journey where you don't have to mess around with your phone or anything, or your IDs, is where we're aspiring to go. And it's a lot of it just for efficiency and just making that journey a little nicer.
Yeah, so for me, and Bernie touched on this, it's even less about the technology and really more about the experience. So data is really at the core of everything we do. And so one of the things that I would love to see, and we're certainly on this journey right now, is how can we take information in an industry that's, for the most part, slightly reactive and make it more proactive? How can we actually get into looking at data science models, which have been around for some time, but truly make it more predictive? As I mentioned earlier, I have personally dealt with 2 very serious health conditions for parents in the last 60 days, and they were very, very serious. Think about if there were ways where we could have caught some of those warning signs and found a way to engage and found a way to help people navigate these significant health crises earlier on. And there's genomic mapping, and a lot of this stuff exists today for a very, very small subset of the population. But the opportunity is just endless for us to figure out I mentioned empathy earlier, I mentioned making sure that we know our customers, we don't want to be creepy, we don't want to scare people. But what are people doing today? They're going to Google and they're searching on their own, and it's like, hey, you could either have a sore throat, a rash, or you're dying of cancer. And so those are the types of analysis that are there. How can we use the tens and tens of millions of data records that we have to truly take that Google scenario and put people on a journey to better manage something as important as their health? So those are the things, to me, as far as the most disruptive ways that we can do by leveraging the core, which is our data infrastructure that we have available to us.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Absolutely. Data and the use of data has a lot of restrictions, privacy, and people not allowed to see others' data, and parents cannot see children's data, and all kind of stuff. In the middle of that, data is going to drive change by itself. To your point, Jim, if MGM doesn't do it, somebody will do it. Findyourway.io, to your point. And then it'll have an app which says, I'll go through and tell you where to go, and MGM may not tell you. We will. And we'll not only do it for MGM, we'll also do it for Palazzo, we'll also do it for others. So that's where the market is. The next question we had on this topic was, how does a technology like Metaverse look for you or for the industry, for our clients, and for individuals 1 to 2 years from now, in the short term, not 5 years from now? That's too long, things change beyond what we can do. Bernie?
Yeah, well, for starters, you've seen the Metaverse in 2 examples, okay? So it's not like 1 to 2 years. It's the Metaverse.
Something doesn't change.
So it's here today, right? And again, a lot of folks, they think of the Metaverse, they think of Oculus, they think of avatars, they think of shopping in a virtual mall. Again, I would not get enamored with the technology. Technology will always be there and always be an enabler. You just mentioned data. It's always been about data. The first computers were set up to take data, put it into a usable form, and get insights from it. So when they created the first card punchers, to do the census, it was all about data. How many people are there? It's always about the data. So one of the things about Metaverse is I would ask that you think about what it's going to do not only to the culture, and I talked about social, but what's it going to do to business models and outcomes. So as an example, you may say a disruptive technology could be headless technology. I don't know if you heard that term, headless technology. An example would be, you wake up and you say to Alexa, go order that, a bike for me, or go order whatever you want, but you want something. Just think about what that does to disrupt supply chains, sellers, people in call centers. If you can just automatically take the back office out of that, the front office out of that, and just go order something online and have it show up either that day or the next day. But a lot of that's happening today. But what are the implications from that? What's the reskilling? What if you don't need, call centers with real people in them? These are all business models that are happening around us today that you need to think about. So it's not necessarily what does the metaverse look like. It's, okay, what's coming down the pike and how can I prepare for it relative to my skills? Me personally, these gentlemen that are up here, I'm sure they had to repolish their skills and making sure that they understand where technologies are going and how they can influence the business outcomes for their firms or their life at home for aging parents and other things.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. So again, all of us can predict and say, oh, there's going to be robots, there's going to be avatars, all those things. You won't need to leave your home. And I don't think any of that's all futuristic. There'll be a little bit of that, but it's really going to change the way that you live every single day, both in your personal life as well as in your business life.
Sure.
And it's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to react?
Yeah, I totally agree. And the other thing I think, that it will allow us to do, especially in something, like healthcare, quite honestly, is it can almost demystify some of this as well. So I think, if you're thinking about somebody that's engaging in their health, if you're able to almost understand what that experience could be in the metaverse and actually, like I said, look at some of the physical models and really become more informed and educated. There's a lot of people in this world that are just anxious when it comes to something like their health. And so I think there's a lot of education that could actually come to help build the trust through understanding. And so that to me, as Bernie was talking about, that is kind of a really exciting space for us, because although, again, it is still very, very sensitive and super personal, usually it's a lot worse when you're not sure, like I mentioned before, whether you just have a sore throat or it's something way more significant. And so I think this is just a great opportunity to leverage this technology to truly improve that understanding.
Absolutely.
The other thing I think it's really important too is the compliance and regulatory aspects. You see examples today when you talk about futuristic, like augmented reality, those type of things. The social aspects of what you have today by just look what's happening with Twitter today. Yeah. Look what's happening in some countries relative to what you can and can't say. The social aspects and decentralizing all of those things has both positive as well as negative implications. And a lot of that will play out over the coming years. So it'll be very interesting to watch. But again, a lot of benefit, but at the same time, you have a lot of other concerns relative to augmented reality and augmented news and the way people receive information. Your example is a great one when somebody goes to sore throat, right?
Yeah. Thank you. So Jim, you already talked about what you see in the future for yourself, but overall in the industry, do you see any major changes happening?
I think the metaverse is going to for sure start playing into it. You said the change management and QR codes is one of the funniest things. And I don't know when they were invented, but they've been around for a long time. And all of a sudden now, it's like you can't get away from them. Like if you walk through an airport and count how many you see, we use them for everything. And I think it's for us specifically with the metaverse. I think our next year is around solidifying these 3 business use cases to make sure, because we actually had met with MGM and we were talking with them, and they had some interesting stuff with like playing craps, and you're throwing the dice and stuff like that, and it was awesome for 10 minutes. And then I was like, well, I'd rather just go to a craps table. So like I think we want to see if we get these 3 right. We want to get our reference architecture somewhat right. I think we're going to be evolving on it, and then for us, year 2 would be trying to get it not just about the airports, but the other operational groups and in the commercial. Because even the commercial ones, there's a lot of fun. Everyone brings us all these ideas, and we're doing a lot with our lab right now with just kind of interviewing different generations. Because we're seeing some generations now, even the younger ones, actually want to be on the phone, and they want to be interacting with people. Is some of the surveys that are coming, and can the Metaverse, help with that or not? So we're trying to box it in a little bit, because the ideas get you, like in the commercial space, you're going to buy more tickets by taking a look at what our plane looks like at home. I don't know. You're going to spend $500 more. I don't think so. Right. But I think that we're just in this test and learn phase to see if we got our vision right in the next year, and then if it is, we want to expand it to the rest of the airline. And I hope we're faster than the rest of the airline industry.
No, yeah. From UST, we are saying 2 things. One, AWS and the kind of services they provide headlessly and allow you to do things very fast. That's crucial to doing this, the conversion of an idea to something which can be taken to clients and tested, rolled out, moved on, and you move on. That's one. And the second is, as Jim, you pointed out, some of these skills that are required have to be acquired at speed. You cannot there are so many new things coming up, new devices coming up, new technologies coming up, that to stay on top of it and have people who are enjoying doing that itself is a skill. And that's what UST does. We don't run planes, we don't fly planes, we don't run healthcare. But what we do is have the ability to deliver people at speed. Most of the team that Matt has, Matt from UST, have literally been on the job for 1 year, 2 years. That's it. You can't have somebody with 10-year experience any longer, because it doesn't exist. So that is where we are playing, and we really hope that this event was useful from a point of view of kind of hearing something new about where technology is taking businesses today. We love more questions. We can catch up after this, and anything we can do to help move that is where we are. Thank you very much for the session, really, for your time. It's valuable, and appreciate all your time. Thank you.